Well, Angela Morton hosts Recovery Is on Armstrong's Neighborhood Channel. She does a lot of other things as well. She joins us here this morning. Morning, Angela. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Luke. Nice to see you too, as always.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New year,
It's already
new opportunities.
Yeah, it feels like we're well entrenched now already, right?
That's right. Well, you were hoping it was like February.
I didn't say hoping. I said
Oh,
it feels
okay.
like it should be February.
It's coming. We're already marching through this month, so.
Yeah.
This used to be like the longest month of the year. It just felt like it just would never end. But there's so much that goes on, and there's so much happening. It goes fast. So.
It does. I heard somebody say that January is the Monday of the year.
Oh, okay.
Feels like Monday.
See, I like Mondays. Tuesdays, I struggle with Tuesdays because it's like, oh, it's only Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
And Monday's like, okay, new week, new opportunities, lots going on. And then Tuesday's like, okay, it's the roadblock to, middle of the week, you feel like you're getting somewhere. And then.
That's why Thursday's fun. It's like Friday Eve.
There you go. See?
Right? You're ready for the weekend.
Yeah. Well, Fridays, though, can be tough because you're trying to wrap things up and maybe you don't care. You're putting things off. I'll deal with it Monday. And I don't know. But, yeah, Thursdays are good.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you. Every day's different. We were talking about this before coming on. Recovery is different for everybody. And it's not just a one-size-fits-all thing. The path of recovery is different for everybody. Even if somebody's struggling with the same thing as somebody else, the way they handle it, the way they can get through it is going to be different.
So across the country, when people get the grants, like we have these grants for Venango and Crawford County and the Corey area through the Rural Communities Opioid Response Program. So we named our grant project Recovery as NWPA. And in our grant project, we talk with other grantees around the nation and our technical expert leads that the government appoints for us to work closely with. There are a lot of conversations across the country about what people think recovery is. That's the name of Recovery Is,
Yeah.
NWPA. So we talk about that with the experts. We talk about it with other grantees in rural areas and across the country. So learning from other people and the way they're doing it, we're finding out that it's not unique to Crawford, Venango, and rural Erie County that people think recovery just means abstinence, that you quit drugs, you quit alcohol, you are free of all substances, and now you're in recovery. Recovery can look different for everyone, like you said. Not all substance use is addiction, and not everyone chooses a path of complete abstinence but still identify in recovery, maybe from one substance but not another, or never really became dependent, but they do work in recovery to make sure that they are taking care of their mental health and using good coping skills and not having a chaotic relationship with, an activity or substances or something. So it is very different for everyone, and we want to promote that because the standard has always been, you quit, you're in recovery. Complete abstinence is the only way. And that's not necessarily always the true for people, and it can actually sometimes put people at risk when they think, I have to quit completely and I can't do this. And then they're afraid to get help, or they don't seek guidance, or they don't try to cut back because they think they have to quit.
So, for example, and this may be a horrible example, I don't know. Somebody who is used to going home and drinking a case of beer. Now they say, okay, this is a problem, but now they're maybe two cans of beer a night versus a case.
You're reducing risk, you're reducing harm. So in harm reduction, we say we're reducing harm, and that can mean anything from putting a seatbelt on, condoms, drinking less, checking your drugs before you use them to know what's in them. So harm reduction is important. So if somebody says, hey, I went from drinking a case of beer to 2 beers a day, and their doctor says that they're okay, there's not any medical reason, and they're not getting behind a wheel, that's a great improvement. Now, somebody may say that's not really recovery, but that would be that person's version of recovery.
Yeah. And that's probably the important part of this conversation, right, is recognizing that is a step in the right direction. And that's kind of that balance of, as you said, there's this notion of completely eliminating something to be considered, in recovery, but that's not the case. It's an improvement. It's getting, it's that balancing act of not cutting yourself completely off and maybe picking up other things. Maybe you can get into this here, but it's that you're slowly backing off that extreme, but not putting yourself into a position where you're wanting something else.
Well, and maybe not even just the wanting of something else, because some people do find ways to self-medicate or to not just be comfortable in their own skin, like coping without needing any kind of substance or activity to not be with yourself, to either like mask or stuff emotions, mental health issues, trauma, or to feel something because you're feeling numb. So anytime we're using something or have a chaotic relationship with something, whether it's our job and we're working too much and have no boundaries with work, or a really like chaotic relationship with food and using food to cope, drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, like anything, gaming, gambling, that people get that endorphin rush and they feel good. It makes you feel something or it numbs something you don't want to feel. And then you're using something other than just being yourself. So being mindful of that is really what recovery is about, but not every person is even going to identify with that word recovery. They might say, oh yeah, I quit drinking years ago, but they don't identify as in recovery, like doing some of the emotional and mental work that helps people be aware of why they were doing those things in the first place.
Now, it's fascinating. You mentioned gambling, and I think of the person that, it's money, $5 bills, $20 bills, and losing and losing and losing. And the mind is, I'm going to win the next time. The next one's going to hit. I'm going to get that money back, and they don't. But it's that craving of wanting it back. And I was thinking, with recovery, sometimes you've talked about this. What the body does when you completely just shut yourself off from something and say, "That's it, cold turkey, done." That might jolt your mind enough for them to say, well, maybe that's wrong because I don't want to feel that.
Some people can do that. They can choose to stop doing something cold turkey and never turn back. That can be dangerous. I was talking to some people about dry January, and that's kind of the model. People are going, hey, like dry happy hours, or trying to cut back in January and then maybe taking it into the year. If somebody is using a substance and has to face withdrawal, it's important to have support, to talk to a doctor, to call your county drug and alcohol office and get an assessment or even just a screening. People who drink heavily, whether you're drinking daily or drinking large amounts or binge drinking, withdrawal can be actually dangerous from alcohol. So cold turkey works for some and not for others. But what you said about what happens to our body or to our brain, the reward center is triggered in the same way by gambling, sex, food, work, any things that fulfill us and give us an endorphin rush or a dopamine rush. So while you're chasing the $140 ticket in the bowl, and you're chasing that ticket, and that you get, as soon as you hit the 100, you get that surge of dopamine and it feels good again, and you'll burn through another $200 to try to get the 140 just to get that feeling back. And it starts to become outside of your, like, I want to stop this and I can't. That's when it becomes like you're depending on that process, and you've kind of hijacked your pleasure center of your brain. So people do that sometimes they need that drink after work, or they need the drug that they're taking to cope with something at home or at work. And we could repeat that cycle, and then your brain is looking for that reward, and that's when dependency can happen. So it's just really about being mindful of, am I having this drink because I'm having a social drink with friends and family? Am I having this drink because I, quote, need it, and I've been thinking about it all day, and it's the thing that's going to make me feel better? That's when it kind of tips the scales.
Well, speaking of tipping the scales, you could almost substitute any of this talk with, dietary issues. And we know obesity is a problem, but there are some that say, we're coming into the new year, obviously, and resolutions are, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, a lot of those conversations are also based on professionals saying, well, you don't have to do it just cold turkey. Instead of eating that whole pizza, eat a slice of pizza, or back down to 2 slices of pizza. Don't just completely stop. Just back off of what you're doing, and slowly, the more you introduce health, hopefully the health is going to kick out those other aspects.
They're slow and small changes are easier than saying I'm just going to completely quit eating pizza. But I do a lot of my own work around my relationship with food, and because our pleasure center of our brain is activated by watching television and seeing things moving fast, and the computer screen or TV screen is lighting up, if you're eating and watching TV at the same time, Now, I'm not a neurologist. I'm not technically a psychologist, but you know the difference between sitting in front of a TV or a movie with a pizza in front of you and turning the TV off and sitting at the table with family or by yourself and eating that slice or that 2 or that 3, whatever you usually do. And then you know your brain says, okay, I've had enough or I'm full. Really being mindful and knowing when you're full. But when you have the pizza sitting next to you in front of a movie, how many slices do you eat? It's more, right? I mean, almost everybody I say that to, they're like, that's a good example because you tend to graze more when you're watching TV.
Yeah.
Just not being mindful of what you're eating, but also because you're like double hitting that pleasure center with TV and food at the same time. So you're just watching TV and eating, and it's easy to overdo it.
I enjoy pizza, so I mean, I could eat pizza.
Sorry, bad example. You're like, doesn't matter whether.
Do you
TV's
mind if I
on or
make
not.
a phone call and see if somebody can deliver real quick? But no, you're right, and you kind of just lose yourself in that, and that's why those ads are placed during those special events, movies and games, and I see a pizza commercial or wings, especially like the Super Bowl's coming up, so we'll talk about okay, we're gonna have some snacks and blah blah blah, and we might not have a pizza, but I'll see a commercial and be like, boy, that looks really good. Maybe we should have pizza.
They know what they're doing with
They
that
do know what
marketing,
to do.
right?
Yes, they do.
And they say there are like ethical coders, ethical programmers, ethical marketing. I've read some about that because it's the same thing. They're trying to appeal to something in our brain that excites us. So you see something, it looks good. With gaming, they try to kind of grab you and trap you into, I didn't mean to use that word, but they want you to use their game more or watch their show more. So there's that element of let's get people to really enjoy this, what gives people pleasure, and then you want more of that. So I think in any kind of recovery, if we're just being mindful and aware and we're all addressing our own mental health and we're using healthy coping skills and expressing ourselves when we need to and not stuffing all of our feelings, then we're less likely to engage in some of those things that can easily go from, we're talking about substance use isn't always addiction, but it can tip into that kind of easily. That it can go from just social use, that people are maybe smoking marijuana or using recreational or medicinal marijuana, or they're drinking or using other recreational drugs, and maybe it's once a year or 3 times a year, maybe it's only on weekends, but it can easily tip into something more problematic when it's affecting areas of your life or affecting your health.
Let's do this real quick. You're watching the Morning Drill on Stream Television and on Armstrong's Neighborhood Channel. Angela Morton with us here this morning. I want to ask you on the recovery side, where are some areas of improvement? Because we just started out by saying, everybody's path is different. But yet when you look at the group mentality, the, AA meetings, things like that, where you have a group together, are there areas of improvement there? Is there a mindset of we're going to kind of treat everybody the same? Or is there an opportunity to kind of say, hey, everybody's path is going to be different? We can have an overall conversation with everybody, but please know that whatever path you take, it's okay if it's different from the person next to you.
It's absolutely okay that it's different from the person next to you. And I have great respect for the 12-step model, AA, NA, and there's like MARA, which is Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. There's all these support groups that are so crucial to recovery. When people navigate that road and say, I want to try this, support is critical. Lives have been saved by everything from a support group to medication to harm reduction and just cutting back on your own. It's really important that we don't, on any end of that spectrum, say that this way is the only way. So if I said medication-assisted treatment or medication for opioid use disorder, medication for alcohol use disorder, those are medications that heal and fill the receptors in your brain that make you crave. So I have watched it save people's lives. But I also don't want to say every single person in recovery or who's used a substance should be on medication. Likewise, if we were to say that the only way to do it is complete abstinence or AA, NA, or a support group or MARA or online recovery or something, if we say one way is the absolute way and you're not in real recovery unless you do it my way, it can actually be kind of dangerous. Think of if you're a person who's thinking, I may want to consider this. I think I need to make some healthier choices. And somebody says, this is the only way you can do it. It could be kind of dangerous because it means if you're not doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. And there is no wrong door to recovery. And I know you joked about the door, like Wile E. Coyote stepping off a cliff, but really, if somebody says, I want to do this and I want help, even if they say, I'm not gonna drink all week, I'm just gonna reduce my drinking to the weekends. Now, that could be helpful, and if someone's working with their doctor, that's great. Now, if that means that you don't drink all week, but you binge drink all weekend, it still could be really unhealthy if you're not taking care of yourself, your health, your job, your family, your finances. So without judging what I just said, a person can make that choice, and that would be their recovery. A person could be on medication. A person could be no longer using meth and cocaine, but they still have an occasional social drink. Or a person who quit drinking, maybe still uses medical marijuana. And there are people who would say, well, then you're not really in recovery. And I just really want to keep saying that recovery is whatever a person makes it, and there is no wrong way. So anytime someone says, no, you can't do it that way, I would encourage anybody who is facing that or wants to consider that to say, my recovery is going to look like what I need, and I'm going to get support in that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what I need to keep myself healthy while also considering the feedback of everybody around me. It doesn't mean shut out feedback, but take it all in like you would any other information, and then use what works for you.
Going off of kind of what you said there, there's a lot of information out there. How does somebody find the right support?
Well, locally, you can just call your county drug and alcohol office. Every county has, you call and say, I need drug and alcohol help, or I just want to talk to somebody about drugs and alcohol. They'll put you through to drug and alcohol, and you can have just a 5-minute screening with somebody on the phone. If it goes well and you'd like an assessment, they would set you up for an appointment in the next day or few days. And then maybe they'd say you really don't seem to need anything but some recovery support. Or maybe it sounds like what you're telling me is you're really struggling and you want some help. We can get you into like a detox or a rehab program. Or they recommend those things and you say, I'm not quite ready for that. And you make sure and address it tomorrow or the next day or a week or a month from now, whatever works for you. But that's the easiest way locally to get connected, regardless of your ability to pay. You call the county and say, I have insurance, I don't have insurance, but I think I need some help. But there's also a lot online that people could go on and Google right now. Dharma Recovery, Smart Recovery, AA and NA have online meetings. MARA, which is Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous, so that people who are using like Suboxone or Methadone or Vivitrol, the medications that help treat substance use disorders, that they can have a safe space and an accepting space to talk about that and their recovery.
For somebody who might go through an ER setting or their doctor, I want you to kind of talk about this. So we were talking about before coming on, that handoff to the next step. Talk a little bit about that process.
You remember it all. That's great.
Well.
Great. I thought they were just mental notes. You took good notes.
Yeah.
So warm handoff is the term I was telling you about, that in hospitals across the country, they want to do like a quick and warm handoff to somebody who maybe an emergency room doc or nurse isn't in a position in their like busy patient load that they might need to like have somebody like a care manager or social worker or somebody from the county like substance use program come and do an assessment. People need to know how to advocate for themselves and use whatever words you're able to say, here's exactly what I'm struggling with. And the more brave people are, all of us are, by saying it, we normalize it. So if we can say, hey, I've been drinking a lot over the holidays and I'm having a little bit of trouble like cutting back. Like I feel shaky or I get nauseous or I get a headache or I'm getting really irritable. Whatever is happening, share that and say, I'm coming here to talk to you about this, and be very direct. If you need to use the words, I think I'm struggling with a substance use disorder, or I've been smoking too much of this, or I've been taking pills that were not mine. And it's brave and it takes a lot of courage to say it, but saying it and taking care of yourself and advocating for yourself. And if somebody comes off as judgmental, this is what I get passionate about. I will train and help people. Anybody who wants to reach out through our website, my email and phone number are on there. But I want to encourage people to say, I am a person, I'm struggling with this. I really just want some help. And if there's any judgment or any stigma, to be able to say, I really just need to be taken care of today. I'm just here to get some medical care, or I just need my needs taken care of. Can you tell me where I can do that? So if you're in a space or a place, whether it's your nurse or doctor or pastor or a friend, and you're not being well received, please be brave and keep plugging away and trying to fight for your own needs.
Real quick, on the website, there's a list of upcoming meetings and events. Folks can check out the website to learn more. Anything you want to mention that's coming up?
Friday, January 26th, the end of this month at noon, we have a virtual community meeting. We do that quarterly, and we're hosting Dr. Catherine Chappell from McGee Women's Research Institute. And she's a really great physician doing work around hepatitis C and pregnancy and understanding how we can screen and test for that. It's a community issue, a public health issue.
Angela, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you in February.
Yes.